can you be a fan of video games without actually playing them? This has been a debate and a discourse that I've been seeing over TikTok, Instagram, and social media in general, YouTube, Twitch. Different streamers, different people giving their ideas and their inputs about this topic. And what I found really surprising is that why is this so divisive? I mean, the answer is quite clear to me, but before I give you my opinion, let's see what both sides try to say. Side 1. Side 1 says that, hey guys, you can be a fan of video games without having to play them. They argue that the world, the story, the characters, the soundtrack, the game design, so many other factors within the game can be appreciated without actually having to play them. You can always just watch your favorite Twitch streamer or YouTuber or even just raw gameplay or cutscenes. You know, there's a lot of videos on YouTube that are just simply like, hey, God of War Ragnarok the movie, where it's just a compilation of all the cutscenes, maybe a little bit of the boss fights here and there just to give you some context. But yeah, that's all that there is to it. And they say that, yeah, you can be a fan without it. And then you have side number 2, which says that, hey guys, you cannot be a fan of video game unless you actually play them. There are a lot of nuances, the difficulty, the player agency, the choices, the overall game design, the gameplay, a lot of emotional moments tied to the story that you actually, when you play the medium, you get a certain experience different from others that will basically make you a fan. They argue that gameplay is interactive by design. So unlike books and movies, gameplay is the core of the experience. You won't be able to fully understand the mechanics, the difficulty, the player agency, the emotional moments you create by playing, moments that you get that nobody else would see because you specifically are choosing this. This is very heavily hinted at or heavily seen in games that are player driven or choice driven, because if you're playing something, you get to be the one to choose. You get to use your thoughts and your brain. But if you're actually watching somebody else play that, they'll pick a choice that maybe you don't agree with and you kind of want to see the other perspective. So that's side number 2's argument. Let's go deeper into side number 1. Side number 1 says that, I mean, there's many points. The main point I've already mentioned, the world, the lore, the characters, the soundtrack, the story, all of these things are basically an art form. And being a fan is about appreciation, not necessarily only participation. There's a reason that millions of people watch Let's Plays on Twitch, they watch speedruns of games, they watch streams, YouTube videos, all about their favorite game to consume more. They watch theory videos on what maybe the sequel of the game could be. They watch breakdown of the characters, the gameplay, the nuances, the Easter egg, the secrets, and maybe they haven't really played the game themselves necessarily. Why wouldn't they play, you would say? Maybe some games are inaccessible because maybe they're on older hardware that's hard to emulate. Some people are not bothered to go and spend X amount of hours emulating a game, right? And trying to set up a specific ROM and download everything and blah blah and become a pirate in the high seas because, you know, that's very, very legal. And they're just not bothered for that. They just want to see the gameplay and see, hey, maybe will I like this series or not? One of the arguments that this side or this camp makes is that regardless of you actually participating within this medium, you can appreciate many aspects of a video game and almost have the similar, or not similar, like 90% of the experience, even if you're watching somebody else do it. There are many people out there that know so much about a video game and they haven't played it, or they interact with the medium, but they haven't played it. For example, there are a lot of people who love the Ace Combat music. The Ace Combat games have ridiculously good music. Some people are just interested maybe in the planes and seeing how they fight, but they might not particularly be fan of the gameplay of plane fighters. They don't want a dogfight in the air. They just want to kind of see how ridiculous it can be. Another one, and I think one of the biggest examples for side 1 on this, is the Five Nights at Freddy's series. I can guarantee you 90% of people have not played this game series. They've watched somebody else play it, and the main intrigue, the main mystery of FNAF is the lore. Now, there are people who actually really enjoy the gameplay of FNAF, but personally, for me, you know, actually flipping up a camera, looking left, looking right, trying to close the door, checking if Chica is there, opening the camera, winding up the music box, that gameplay is not particularly for me. However, the lore is hyper interesting, and I know so much about that game series regarding, maybe I've watched hundreds and hundreds of hours of theories at this point over the many years, going from game theory to Raitos to FNAF, so many other YouTubers making their theories. When a game comes out, I watch the gameplay. I watch Dawko, for example, play the game and then and kind of give his take on the whole situation. And I see his reactions and it's highly entertaining. But I personally would never spend money on a FNAF game because I know that that gameplay style is not for me. I did buy Security Breach because I thought maybe it would be good, but you know, we know how that went. That game is very problematic. Another way that people on side one say that you can interact with the medium is listening to game OSTs all day. You don't necessarily need to actually have to play the game to appreciate it, when you can just listen to music all day. You can listen to banging soundtracks like the Halo theme, just any of the Xenoblade songs, as I said earlier, the Ace Combat music. There are so many different ways for someone to interact with the medium of video games without having to actually play them. Let's dive into another characteristics of this kind of side. Let's go with the world of games. Expedition 33 recently came out to critical acclaim, and many people didn't really know about this game that much, and eventually started blowing up slowly through word of mouth. People would watch the gameplay and realize, wow, the characters of Expedition 33 are phenomenally written. The world building and the little hints about what the actual plot twist of the game throughout the world, you know, the little Easter eggs, the little question marks, the way the story was written was so phenomenal that it was great. But some people don't like to play turn-based games. Not me. I mean, I love them personally, but they don't like to play turn-based games. They don't like the gameplay, but they love the characters. Let's give another example. JRPGs are extremely long. Let's take, for example, the Xenoblade series. Xenoblade, oh man, it's personally my favorite series of all time. I've played all the games, but I can tell, or I can say that yes, it is a really big time sink. Unfortunately, for the Xenoblade series, first of all, it's limited to the Switch, so it's a Nintendo IP, and some people don't want to buy a whole console to be able to just play this exclusive. They also maybe don't particularly like the sort of combat style of the game, then they don't really enjoy it that much. However, as I said before with Expedition 33, the way the characters are written, the plot twist, the story, heck, just walking around in the world of Xenoblade is something that's so magical that, in my opinion, no other game could recreate. The emotions that it gives you, the fact that you can just look at some place and you end up there is absurd. You can just walk anywhere. Like, there's nothing off limits within those games, and it's so immersive, especially if you watch someone. I'll give a very famous example, and the person who got me into this game series was Chugga Conroy. If you have someone who's so enthusiastic and dedicated to showing off the game to you and explaining every detail that maybe, let's say, you want to know everything that there is about this game, but you don't have the time to go for 100%, nor do you have the effort, because some of the side quests, for example, require very specific things that you have to spend a lot of time to actually get through, but you just want to see it. So that's when you kind of just fast forward the gameplay, you can skip it and just get to the good stuff. In summary, for side one, they argue that there are so many aspects of a game that you can appreciate without necessarily having to engage in the media. Similar to the ways that you enjoy anime, manga, TV shows. You can maybe not like a show, but you can like its music. You can maybe not like the anime, but you can really like the manga of this specific thing. So this is kind of the argument of side one. Now let's go to side two. Side two argues that games are interactive by design, meaning that unlike movies or books, the gameplay is the core of the experience. That's what makes it so different. You can't fully understand the mechanics, the difficulty, the nuances, right? The player agency, the emotional moments that gets created when you're playing a specific video game for yourself. You will never be able to appreciate the difficulty of Escape from Tarkov and get that satisfaction if you've never played the game. One of the most famous examples is the Souls games. The Souls games are so primarily gameplay focused. I mean, the story is kind of there, but you have to dig deep into it, or you have, for example, Body Video or whoever to tell you about it. But the core of those games is the gameplay, and you will never be able to understand the difficulty of a Pontiff Sullivan, of a Bale, of a Consort Radon, of a Ludwig the Holy Blade without actually playing the game. Heck, just going through an area by yourself and struggling and going through really severe difficulty, and then you eventually, after so many attempts, get through that boss that you've been struggling for a long time. Then you get that feeling of dopamine, that rush in your brain to be like, oh my god, I finally did it. I beat this guy. Oh my god. I mean, this is not necessarily only limited to difficult games. Let's give an example of Undertale. Undertale is beloved by many. Now, personally, I haven't played it, so it's kind of a bad example. But a bad example for me to talk about, I mean. But that game is based on choices that you make. And based on your choices, there are consequences for your actions. And it teaches you, spoilers for Undertale if nobody's actually, finished it, that if you're merciful, you get a much better ending than you when you have to attack people and blah blah. And that feeling can't come if you're just watching it, because you're not actively the one making the decision. Let's give another absolutely brilliant game that shocked me this year, or was it last year? And this was Dispatch. Now, Dispatch is one of those games that, based on every single choice that you make, I mean, it's a Telltale game basically. Every single choice you make changes the story. It affects the outcome. Who do you romance? Blonde Blazer or Invisigal? Who do you pick on your team? Phenomenon, the Phenomenon, big guy, or the water boy, I forgot his name, the goat. These decisions actually change the outcome of the story, the dialogue that you will hear. And you get so immersed because you're the one who's making these phenomenal decisions, and these decisions that immerse you so much into the world that you feel you're part of the gang. But if you watch somebody else do it, you might be entertained by, for example, X-YouTuber, let's say like Jacksepticeye, Markiplier, Moist Critical, whoever, right? But you're engaged in their version of their story, not your version of the story. Another good example is watching somebody make a Minecraft world versus you making your own Minecraft world. When you make your own Minecraft world, you have a personal connection to it. A lot of people have Minecraft worlds that are like 10 plus years old. They have such a deep connection to the game. They feel like it's basically their second house. Some people build massive castles. Some people build automated farms. I don't know, there's so many different things in Minecraft. Or some people have modded worlds where they play as superheroes or whatever it can be. And that's an experience you wouldn't get if you watch with someone. You can watch his journey, right? If he's doing a hardcore world or a challenge or whatever, and his storytelling, but it's not your story. You're not the one who's experiencing the game for yourself. One of the arguments this side makes is saying that you're like a fan of roller coasters while only watching POV videos on YouTube. So it doesn't really make sense. You can't be a fan of roller coasters with just watching POV videos on YouTube, right? Doesn't add up. There's some other games. I keep going back to JRPGs because that's what I've been playing recently, where you play, with JRPGs usually you have a massive squad, and the members that you pick within that squad is dependent on your personal attachment to those characters. If you're watching, for example, a Let's Player, and he might have a certain preference of playing X character. Let's say, for example, in Xenoblade it's Rhyne, or Shulk only, and he plays Shulk only. I know a lot of good Let's Players try to show off all the characters, but let's say you have a favorite character out of the cast, but that YouTuber isn't really necessarily picking that, or that streamer or whatever, TikToker or whatever, is not necessarily picking that character that you like. Now you miss out on the experience because you don't get to truly appreciate the game, and you're missing out on your favorite characters because somebody else has the controller, and it's completely out of your hands on the decisions that they make within the game. Let's take another major contributor to gameplay, is the core of everything, are fighting games. Now, I've been recently getting into fighting games. I've been playing Street Fighter 6, and I'm absolutely horrid at the game. It's fun though. It's fun. It's a big challenge. And I highly recommend whoever doesn't know how to play fighting games, if they have a friend who's good, let him teach you. Play on modern controls. Hot take, I know. Sorry, classic players. You guys are way too good at the game, and you've been playing since 2010 or 1990s on the arcade stick. Forgive me, I'm not that good at the game. But one of the most defining factors is that you will never be able to appreciate fighting games and the thrill of fighting games once you fully understand all the gameplay mechanics. You put in the hours, and you get to the point where you start doing the guessing game, and you're trying to read, rather than the actual character on screen, you're trying to read the player. That's an experience that not many people get to go through, because fighting games are so hard to get into. Yet, if you just watch people who play, for example, in professional tournaments and EVO and blah blah, you will not be able to gain that understanding, or you won't be able to gain that feeling of being in that moment, having that pressure on you to win that fight without playing the actual game. You wouldn't understand it, because even if you play the game casually, you would get some understanding, you get some connection, emotional connection to the game. If you've never played the game, you would never understand that doing this specific combo is extremely difficult. Like, maybe you can understand it in theory, but you need the practice to kind of get it, right? Side 1 is more theoretical, side 2 is more experienced. A lot of people also argue that you're a fan of the content surrounding the game and not necessarily the actual game. So therefore, you can't really be a fan of the games. If you've only watched streams and lore videos, critics argue, well not critics, but people argue in this camp that you're a fan of the story or the soundtrack or the community of the game rather than the gameplay experience the developers worked hard to meticulously craft. So to summarize both sides, side 1 basically says being a fan is about appreciation, not necessarily participation. Side 2 says that games are interactive by design and that you need to play the game for yourself to be able to fully immerse yourself and gain the maximum out of the specific game. So what is my opinion on this? I think this argument fucking sucks. Let's just be honest here. Who gives a shit? It's so dumb. If you like something, you like something. It's that simple. I personally have watched maybe hundreds of hours of FNAF videos. Or I've watched a specific game series. Let's say recently Kingdom Hearts 1. I watched the full game with my favorite Let's Player and I became a fan. And I'm curious where the story is going to go next. And heck, I'm going to go and play the second and third games and all the 0.5 and birth and sleep memories and blah blah blah. The Kingdom Hearts series is such a fucking mess. But yeah, I think it's such a weird argument to me that both sides kind of are in extremes. Yeah, you're gonna miss out on some things if you don't play video games, like side 2 says. Yeah, video games are an art medium that have many parts that can be appreciated without necessarily playing the game. I understand both sides. My personal opinion, and I think the simplest way to go with this, is that if you like something, you like something. That's it. No one can tell you that you're a fan of a game or not a fan of a game because they don't know how you feel. It's gatekeeping. You know, things aren't black and white always. You don't need to necessarily be in one group or the other group. This is somewhere in the middle. I think the true value is somewhere in the middle. It's a balanced approach between the two. You can absolutely be a fan of the games universe without having to play the video games. No one is in the right to tell you that you're not a fan of something because you did not do X, Y, and Z. If you like something, you like it. But also, yes, you're going to be missing out a lot of the parts, a lot of the fun of what makes video games so special because you did not play the game. And I think that's the most important part of this. I'll give you a personal example of mine. I mentioned the Xenoblade series. That was a game that I got into through one of my favorite Let's Players, Chugga Conroy. And I think that without his content, I would have never even known about the game. It's such a unique game to me that I've never seen before. When I watched his videos, because of the way he presented the game, I highly enjoyed it. And I became a huge fan of the series. And around that time was when Xenoblade 2 was coming out. So I played through the whole Xenoblade 2 because of his content around the first game. He made me a fan because of the way he presented the game. I went back and I played Xenoblade 1. And honestly, I got a much deeper appreciation of the world and everything after I played it. But I started off in Camp 1, which is I just watched my favorite YouTuber Let's Player play the game. Then I became into Camp 2 when I actually went and played the game. I really appreciated the nuances. I think another one of the games... Alright, hot take time, ladies and gentlemen. Gonna get crucified for this one. I think the gameplay of Red Dead Redemption 2 fucking sucks. I don't like that game at all. I can't bear to play the game. It's so boring. But the story is a fucking masterpiece. The story brought me to tears when I watched it on YouTube. I'm not the biggest fan of the cowboy kind of western gameplay. And I tried playing the game. I really did. I gave it those many attempts over the years. It's just not for me. But the world building, the soundtrack, the story of Arthur Morgan, that is something that made me a fan of Red Dead Redemption 2. Now people will call me and say, you're not a fan, you never played the games. No, I'm a fan of Red Dead Redemption 2. I think it's phenomenal. But yeah, that's two of my personal experiences that I think that is kind of funny when it comes to the situation. So I leave you with a final thought. If you've watched around 100 hours of gameplay of a specific game, but you've never played it, are you more of a fan than someone who has picked up the controller, played the game for like 2-3 hours, then never touched it again? This is where the dilemma is. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. Thanks for watching me yap for like whatever amount of time. I'll see you guys in the next episode of Shadow Yappin'. Is that what I'm going with? I don't know. We'll see. Take care guys. See ya.